Ladies and gentlemen, Riskalyze Chief Investment Officer, Mike McDaniel.
Wow, what a week so far. The positive energy that we've had at this conference is unlike anything that I've seen, and hopefully you've felt the same way. So I wanted to extend a thank you for the positive energy that you've brought to Lake Tahoe. And I also wanted to thank our AV team. When I told them I wanted the Eye of the Tiger song, I was really worried this morning that they were going to play a Katy Perry song. So thank you guys for not doing that to me. That would have thrown me way off. Anyway, now you know what gets my wrist number up. In the spirit of that high energy, if I ask a few questions, can I count on you guys to raise your hand and answer them? And not, yes? I'll take that as a yes. All right. Let's give me some of that energy. All right. How many of you believe that advisors are frugal? All right. How many of you have seen other advisors walking around the sponsor tables looking for free stuff? Right? It's not a bad thing. I've worked a booth. We don't want to take that stuff home. Right? Anyway, how many of you know that we have 6 Riskalyze indexes built with a risk number in mind that are now being used to power 6 new ETFs? That's what I thought. How many of you have wondered why Riskalyze created 6 indexes that are now powering 6 new ETFs? Right? Fair questions. So let me tell you a story. Over a year ago, Riskalyze started building Autopilot. We knew early on that Autopilot was going to cost us a fortune to build. And we knew that we'd have to do something creative to make sure that you could stomach the cost of it. At the same time, we had advisors asking us for investment ideas, model portfolios. So we knew there was a demand for investments and models that were built with the risk number in mind. So with that, we went out on a quest. We wanted to create best-of-breed indexes in expectation that we would find an advisor-centric asset manager that could bring those indexes to life. If we could get those economics down for you, the next time we come around, we're going to see a lot more hands go up when we talk about our ETFs and Autopilot. So we're thrilled that First Trust now manages those 6 ETFs that are based on our indexes. And since those 6 indexes are being managed by First Trust, we thought it was a no-brainer to have them also design the risk number models that you now see as your default models inside of Riskalyze. We couldn't be more thrilled with how those models turned out. And like I said, they are now powering your Riskalyze account by way of the model portfolio section. It's because of that we're able to deliver Autopilot technology at no cost to advisors that use those risk number models or the Autopilot fund universe. So the respect I have for Jim Bowen and First Trust started about 15 years ago. You see, when I was starting my practice, I was looking for resources. I remember asking a mentor of mine, hey, I feel like I need to read the IBD or WSJ or one of these, and for God's sake, I need to have something in my waiting room that at least makes it look like I'm reading this stuff. But I don't have the scratch. I'm just getting started. And he says, I tell you what, Mike, you need to sign up for First Trust Monday Morning Outlook. It's the only analytics you're going to need for the week, easy to understand. And I've been subscribing to that as long as I've been a practicing advisor. Second, they've got wholesalers that are focused on practice management. And trust me, I need practice management help, right? And third, they're best in breed in investments that I wanted to use in my practice. Like Riskalyze, Jim Bowen and First Trust are relentless in their focus on advisors. Like Riskalyze, Jim Bowen and First Trust are laser focused on helping us overcome the negative narrative with math. Please help me welcome to the stage Jim Bowen of First Trust.
All right, good morning. I want more than that. All right, better. Like Riskalyze right now, we're privately held. So if you hate me, I could care less. You can't short my stock. Okay, it's that simple. All right. There's no better group for fintech people on earth. You're all here. You're wonderful. There's nobody as focused on you, the retail advisor, as these guys. There's a reason we're with them. If you know me, and a few of you do, for 33 years, we have been relentlessly, and that's the word that he uses, and it's my word. I'm older. It's mine, okay? It's focus on you. Our firm believes you're noble. No one else in the industry believes you're noble. We do. I watch you give up your life in service to your clients. I'm in awe of that. You take all the blows, you take all the narrative, you're the banksters that took us down. Really? Really? Because you start way over here, you find someone, and they're a prospect, and you turn them into a client, and then you develop a plan for them and their whole family, because it grows, and then you execute it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and then right here at the end, you do what's the most amazing thing, is you help them, or you actually help their estate, disperse their assets, their life work, to where they've chosen that it goes. And that's not noble? You giving up your life in service to people? No, it's stunning to me, and I've watched it for 33 years. We pour ourselves into you. Meetings like this. We do 40 meetings like this. For us, it's only 150 people in Chicago. Then we go around the country, and we do meetings with 150 to 200, and we'll do 72 of those meetings a year. All advisor-focused. Last year, I gave 155 speeches in 39 states, 90% of them to advisors. To the very best advisors, I'll do a dinner with their clients. We love you. So I'm going to try and equip you with not pablum, but with some data, because we believe at our firm, math wins. Really simple. This is a room full of people who get that, right? You want to lose weight? Eat less, okay? It's just math. It's narrative shredding day. Now think of the narratives. For 8 years, it's been there's no jobs, there's no growth, there's no productivity in the United States. And then the last presidential election, we had two I'm going to call them carnival performers, okay? I mean, two of them. Remember, I'm politically to the right of Attila, so out here in left land, I'm an alien, okay? Well, there's a few of you who aren't from left land. I know you left people. You're precious. You're sweet. You're so simple and loving that you do mosquito release. I get that, okay? We can agree to disagree politically. I am fascinated, though, because the guy who won, who everybody over there hates, 5 years ago was a Democrat. I should hate him, not you. He's a masquerader over here. It's interesting to me. And then the narrative is that we're the most divided we've ever been. The country's never been like this. It's horrible. Really? Does no one remember Kent State? The National Guard shot and killed 4 college kids on the campus of Kent State. Watts, Detroit, Chicago were burning. What's going on in Berkeley is cute compared to that. Most divided. It's absurd. They both ran on exactly the same platform. America's off the rails. We've lost our way. The America of our youth is gone. If you elect me, I'll take you back to conservative principles. If you elect me, I'll make certain that our progressive principles are winning the day. They just stressed it. She blames all the CEOs in the country. He blames every other country, starting in Mexico, ending in China. It was amazing to watch. And then I start going to data, and I start looking at things like, I don't know, I think a global GDP is wealth creation. And you're off the rails, you've lost the way. You're only generating 24.3% of the world's wealth, and you're 4.5% of the world's population, which means nothing until we compare it to something. All right, let's compare it to China. Why? Because they're number 2? Yes, and because all the millennials, which, oh my word, there's too many of you in here. I cannot stand it. I look long enough, I'll find beards, man buns. I know they're here. Telling you. And you millennials, you're on me. It's a multicultural world. Oh, boomer, your time is over. Get off, okay? And I keep going, wait a minute. The Chinese are the 2,000-year-old people, not us. They're coming. Then they ought to get here, okay? Do they have the rule of law? Do they have personal property rights? Because see, when you've done this and you're dispersing the assets according to where your client wants them to go, not some governmental body, not some group of their heirs, no, where they chose. Try that without the rule of law or personal property rights. And the whole thing has 1980s feel. We did this whole thing with Japan. It was all Japan all the time. Faster, quicker, smarter, more nimble. They will outwork us. We rebuilt their country. They're going to push us off the stage. Then they bought Pebble Beach. They bought Rockefeller Center. There were genuine outcries for congressional hearings on should they be allowed to do this. Are you kidding me? They ended up selling them at big losses. They peaked in 1989 at 13.9% of global GDP. And then you think about our friends, the Germans. Shortest book on earth, German humor. But we love the Germans because they're a nation of engineers. And engineers work the problem. This country's full of them, and we work the problem. It's astounding to me. If you back up and look at what's really happening. But then Ms. Merkel got excited, threw open the doors, and got a lot of guests. In December 31 of 2015, 167 women were attacked by some of these guests, not just in the shadow of the cathedral in Cologne. No, they were attacked on the plaza right outside the door of the cathedral. Because in Germany, the festivals happen on New Year's Eve. Not carnivals, festivals. But last July, 7 months later, no, it was revealed it was 1,150 women were attacked by 2,000 men in cities all across Germany. And the free press had suppressed the story. I don't know about you, I get uneasy when the free press starts suppressing. And then I think about the whole Brexit nonsense, and I call it nonsense. I mean, those are our cousins, okay? And people's veins are just popping out. Theresa May last week was over there trying to work on how are we gonna do this? And people are screaming, what's wrong with the Brits? Didn't we Brexit from Brexit? What do you mean, what's wrong with the Brits? I mean, do you want to live under the Canadian Parliament and do all of your transactions in pesos? No. No one's going to trade with them. They're the 5th largest economy on earth. I assure you, people will trade with them. They've been around 1,000 years. Oh, there'll be no communication, Jim. There's a tunnel with a train. They're going to communicate, okay? And then I think of the next 15, really big names, little bitty numbers. And this is where my nature just kicks in. I start having fun. Let's see. Let's take, 23% of the world, largest communist nation on earth, nuclear power. Oh, look over here. 19% of the world, largest democracy on earth, nuclear power. Sharing a border, sharing a continent. 42% of the world down here, generating 17.6% of the world's wealth. And then I start looking at you, and I mean you. You know, the guardians of the wealth of the most productive people on earth. That's all. That's all you do. People who can't do what you do. And in fact, to your luxury and standing, you're the most trusted advisors that have ever lived because you're on this side of 08 and 09. Where you performed. You didn't talk a good game. You delivered your clients. It's extraordinary to me. And you get to live now. And you get to shred the narrative. And then we add that other 186 countries. We put them all together, and they're about 4/5 of you. Oh, yeah, but you're off the rails, and you've lost your way. And then I start thinking about narratives in general. Let's look at last year through the lens of narrative. Who remembers how it started? Oh, yeah. We're going to die. We're all going to die. You could blame the Fed, you could blame China, you could blame the Middle East. It was the worst 2 weeks in the history of the market. And then it was, well, maybe not, but we're going to have a Brexit. And then the abomination of all abominations, we now will wander aimlessly like zombies forever. Maybe not. This is what you fought all last year. Death, certain death, Brexit death, Trump death. Hey, pretty good year. And it just continues. Then you start thinking about about narrative on my side. I get so angry at the narrative on my side. It's as bad as the narrative over there. Over here, unemployment's where they're hobby horse. When Bush got it to 4.3, celebrations all across the country. It hadn't been that low in a generation, maybe a generation and a half. Obama leaves office, it's 4.5. No, it's not. What are you talking about? Yes, it's 4.5. No, it's not. There's all these people that are no longer looking for work. They don't count them. It's full of part-time people. That's an absurd number. Well, what about Bush's? Oh, no, it was pristine. Right. So let's turn it around. Let's quit looking at jobs. Let's look at employers who are looking for workers. You know, the unfilled job report that comes out of the Labor Department every month. Oh, let's see. How long has it been since we've had this many employers looking for this many workers? Well, since before the towers went down. See, we have this morning, we have 6.2 million unfilled jobs in this country. But the narrative is there aren't any. There isn't a town in this country where there's not some poor employer desperate to hire someone. He can get no one to pass a drug test that he warns them is coming. He goes, dude, hold till Wednesday. 6.2 million unfilled jobs. Oh, there's no jobs. Oh, right. And then I started thinking about what you watched or didn't watch and what you see or don't see. Bakken, that's the holding of energy in North Dakota. Eagle Ford. Go to Texas. They call that the Eagle Ford. I was down. I said, you mean Eagle Ford? And I leaned right to a guy. I go, Ford. He goes, Ford. I go, you drive a Ford F-150? He goes like this. And I backed right out. And Permian, that's the area out near Midland. And the only way this makes any sense to you is we go back 9 years and 7 weeks. Oil traded at $147, and so we're there. And I say, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's a trader's rube. It's absurd. It goes through the economy. I got fixed income people. It's not absurd. It's a problem. I go, it's not gonna. They can get it out of the ground in North Dakota and in the Eagle Ford and in Permian for $85 a barrel. You go, that's not possible. I go, the engineers are all over this. See, our problem is this continent, the only one on Earth, shale lies like a layer cake. So you got to go down 2 miles, you got to turn horizontal 90 degrees, and then you got to serpentine through the shale. And then there's these new cats, they're called frackers. They get it all out of there, and they can do it. It's amazing. And by the way, today, you import 40 to 60% of your daily energy. But in 5.5 years, you'll be the #1 energy producers on Earth. #1. And it's funny. The Permian, that area out near Midland, in 7.5 years, they'll determine it has more oil than the Saudis have in their whole country. But nobody will care because it's about natural gas. See, the fact that we can get it out at 20, 25, 26 bucks means nothing in the Permian. Because, see, we used to have 50 years of natural gas, and today, 9 years and 7 weeks later, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of natural gas. Now, if I'd have said that to you, you'd say to me, hey, did you stop in Denver on the way out? But that's what you watched happen if you had eyes to see it. You watched your country become the #1 producer on Earth on the threshold of the #1 exporter on Earth. You've watched the geopolitics of the world completely turn around and now focus on you. The Russians are now in Syria to disrupt OPEC because the Russians want to force the Chinese to buy from them, not from OPEC. Because the Russians used to sell to the Europeans. They're now going to be our clients. And the Chinese don't want to have to buy from the Russians, so they're spinning up a navy, building islands so they can project force, because they're going to the Mideast. There will be Chinese ships in the Persian Gulf in 2 to 3 years. They're going to make certain that oil comes out. Why? Well, because we're going to have the Chinese using OPEC against the Russians using OPEC against the Chinese. It's three-card money, and you and I are the bank. Because no matter which way it goes, they do the transaction in dollars because they don't trust each other's currencies. But pay no attention to this. It means nothing. And then you think about no productivity. Well, let's see. Oil production per rig. Back in 2008, let's look at the Eagle Ford. You got about 50 barrels a rig. And since nothing happened production-wise, somehow 1350 is a mirage. But here's what I love. See here? It took 60 to 70 days to drill and frack a well in 2008. 60 to 70 days, and you were rewarded with $50 or 50 barrels a rig. Today, It takes 7 to 10 days to frack a rig, and you're rewarded with $13.50. But pay no attention because in our country there's been no productivity and no growth. And then you get to the TOT. Now here's a news flash, millennials. When you get 60, you just cry at everything. Ask Mike, he's on his way, okay? So I'm standing in Elmhurst, Illinois, that's where I live, 12 miles outside of Chicago, on New Year's Eve, the night that the activity is going on in Germany, 2015. I don't know that that's happening. It's 5 degrees, I got a blanket on, I got the biggest Monte Cristo I had, I'm smoking it, and I'm crying like a baby thinking about the TOT. Because that day was the first day in 40 years a tanker full of U.S. crude went out of the Corpus Christi Bridge. And I'm standing there just it's washing over me that back in 72, 73, at the first oil embargo, and now 9 years and 7 weeks later, at the last time the oil was dear, and it's over. Your country will never have an energy crisis again, which means you'll never be hungry. And we're the energy generation. We live this. And today, our country stands with 2 firm feet on energy independence, and it's never been this way in America. And it's extraordinary. But my side doesn't want to talk about it because it happened under Obama, and this side, oh, it's carbon. It's just incredible to me. And then I start thinking about, well, you know, it took 2 more months for us to load our first liquid natural gas ship. And the Indians, you know, that really pleasant group of people that are 19% of the population of the earth, who are the largest functioning democracy on earth, who share a border with China. And yeah, they what? Well, they've come to us and said, please be our long-term liquid natural gas supplier. Okay. Or you start thinking about, here, 20-second time out. Let's put Harvey in here. Whoa, that gets my attention. Import, 9 years ago, it was all we cared about. The environmentalists were fighting us. We couldn't even get 4 terminals built. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's about export now. Let's see, well, we've got that many built already. What is that, 11? We got 5 more. I mean, our little angry brothers, the Canadians, want in. This is happening. Have eyes to see. Then I started thinking about, well, the only thing that would be better is maybe you could be number 1 in shale gas reserves. Nah, it'd be more fun to be number 1 in shale oil reserves. No, you're both. It's extraordinary. This has gone on in the last 9 years when there's no jobs, no growth, no productivity in the United States, when America's off the rails, lost its way. It's narrative. You are the people who shred narrative and get to data. And then I start thinking about my friends, the Greens. Oh, I love you. You have the ability to be so passionate and yet Bernie represent you. And Bernie ran on no drilling, no fracking, it's evil. And I just kept thinking, somebody get Bernie President Obama's EPA report on fracking. Not Bush's, not the industry-funded one. No, President Obama's EPA. You know, the EPA that when it first went to office, marched right over to the coal industry and said, hey, sorry, you're out of business. And they put regulations in, and the coal industry went bankrupt. Then they came over and they said, okay, frackers, your turn, into the barrel, and they did a 5-year study on fracking. And they went to the wells. They went to the disposal sites. They went to the transfer sites. They watched those trains. And then they wrote their report. And then in July, 5 years downstream, on a Friday at 5, and you can't make that up, they released their report. And the EPA's report finished with fracking is not harmful to the environment. And so then I was just wanting Bernie to have that because, see, for decades, we've needed more electricity. We have more stuff to charge. So we built more plants. We produced more and more and more electricity. We burned nothing but coal. The revolution hadn't happened. So we produced more and more and more CO2. Same rate of increase, makes sense. And then the frackers, those people that the EPA say don't harm the environment, showed. And now we produce all the electricity we want, and we're plunging in our production of CO2. In fact, in 2016, we produced CO2 at the level we did in 1982. Why? Well, because 65% of our electricity was created burning natural gas, 65%. So where does this go when we do 75, 80, 85, 90, 95%? It goes to a level it's never been. Because see, we've never not burned coal. And Bernie wants to stop this. Who's the denier? It's extraordinary when you get to the data. And then you sit and you start having fun. Now, I was born in San Jose, right at the bottom of the bay. This side is Oakland and Berkeley, this side San Francisco. So let's go back to 1970. Why? It's the first Earth Day. It's happening in Berkeley. We're all standing around on those root shoes listening to the Dead. Okay, it's the best. Now you march all the way down here and you find our GDP as a country is up 250%. We did it all on coal. So what are the 6 most common airborne pollutants done? Well, they're down 70. Down 70, we haven't had the revolution yet. No, it's because this is America. We work the problem. We don't just lay around, we don't whine. We don't have seminars. We work the problem here. This is our narrative. And then I start thinking about infrastructure, and that takes me to the current occupant of the White House, the man himself, Donald Trump. First of all, I love that he tweets. I hate half of his tweets. You go, you can't have it both ways. Oh, absolutely. See, his tweeting takes me right to when I was 10 years old and my grandpa took me to a fish farm. I didn't know fish farms existed. All these ponds. And we drive out in the pickup, we get out, and there's this little stand. My grandpa puts a nickel in it, he turns this, I lift the bottom, and my hand's now full of fish food. It looks like rabbit food, it's fish food. He goes, throw it in. I go over to the pond, I throw it in. I had never seen anything like that in my life. Do it again. I did it again. I spread it wide this time. It's like every morning when I get up and I turn over my BlackBerry, I have the last one on earth. I turn it over and I look and I read one of his tweets and then I listen in the left. And it just tickles me. And I turn some of them over and I go, this one's stupid, don't take it, don't take it. And I'm laughing and giggling, and then all of a sudden he starts talking about infrastructure spending. We're going to spend $1 trillion because we're going to invest. I'm not a deficit spender. I start going crazy. My veins are bulging, and I realize he's got me. See, that's the infrastructure of a country that imports 40 to 60% of its energy, 40 to 60% of its daily energy. This country's on its way to producing or exporting, hopefully, 40 to 60% of our daily energy production. Depending on whom you read, that has to go up 50 to 100%. How many jobs is it going to take to double a pipeline in the United States? How long is that going to take? Who's going to fund that? The exporters of energy. And when it's all over, who's going to stand there with the hair? See what I did? You didn't do that. I allowed it. And then it dawned on me. So put the politics down, and it's even harder, put the personality down and start looking right here. Because see, this is where the action is. I'll give you 3 examples. He's got a populated cabinet because the cabinet runs the government. So he starts looking around for a Secretary of Commerce. He's going, what can I do? I can go to Yale. I can get that cat who has so many PhDs, they got an index named after him. Or I can get Wilbur Ross. I mean, I don't know, he's probably the greatest LBO M&A guy of the last 35 years, but this guy is a studied, brilliant economist, and he's done it. Wilbur Ross is my Secretary of Commerce. Now, Obama left me with all these bonds. I got $20 trillion in debt. We got to constantly refinance these bonds. It's like, I can get Bush's guy because he radically shortened the duration of the yield curve. He eliminated a 30-year bond. Rates are incredibly low. But I'm a real estate guy, and I like low rates to be locked in forever. And I've heard there's this guy, this Munchkin guy in Goldman, and he's radically extending the duration of their portfolio. I mean, we could have a 30-year, a 50-year, a 75-year. The Mexicans just did a 100-year bond. Our credit's as good as theirs. Give me that Munchkin guy. I want him to run Treasury. And now I got to have somebody who represent us around the world, a Secretary of State. Now, I can go to Harvard. I can go to the Kennedy School of Government and find people that have studied every single government on earth. Or I could go get Rex, who's done business in 90 countries. I mean, he's negotiated the governments, the currencies, the regulations, the mores of 90 different countries. Give me Rex. Give me Rex. That's this. Don't take the bait. Look at this. Is he perfect? No. But look at this. This is what you want to keep your eyes on. And if you don't, then I want you to go to Bryan, Texas. And I want you to think about Bryan, Texas. 3 years ago, the spring of 2014, what happened? Ebola, boom, straight up. It's extraordinary. What do? Did we rally like we're rallying for the people in Houston and Florida and Puerto Rico? Did we put together a well-oiled plan? You know, a plan like didn't exist in Katrina and exists now, and we're delivering materiel and people? No. The FAA said, sorry, no planes. You can't come here. You're grounded. Oh, and hey, by the way, don't try to sneak to London in here. We've got all your tail numbers. We did that. Did we have a big debate in Congress? You know, the standard debate. Democrats say, oh, please come, please come. Republicans say, die. No, there was no debate. They just, bam. And then Ebola death went higher and higher and higher and higher. And 2 months went by. And then we needed a new plan because we started feeling bad. So we decided, okay, you can come, but when you land, we're going to laser you right in the forehead and look at your temperature. Like that's not going to raise your temperature, me lasering you in the forehead. And then the botanist, the biologist, the chemist, the physicist, and the mega data people began working the Ebola problem. And they worked it like it had never been worked before. And in 18 months, the financial guys started building vertical farms in Bryan, Texas. These enormous warehouses where we're growing tobacco, a certain strain that thrives under pink light. And then there's this process of reduction and deduction, and you get through and you have this extract. And you can't call it a cure because it doesn't cure 100% of the people who have Ebola. But it vaccinates anyone against Ebola. In the last 3 years, your country has gone from sealing its borders against Ebola to, I don't know, you want to call it create, discover, manufacture a vaccine for Ebola. And this is all happening in a country that Michael Moore tells you, hey, your health care is so bad, you got to get to Cuba. Right. Or you think about the Brown Army. You go, what are you talking about? I'm talking about UPS. They fascinate me. I was a kid, I loved those trucks. I didn't realize how many there were. Then I found out. Let's see, if they save just 1 mile per driver per day, they save $50 million. They got some corporate strategists that cranked the math. 1 mile per driver per day. So what'd they do? Well, they hired a fistful of millennials, because who can code like a millennial? Nobody. And they built Orion. Orion doesn't make Google Maps look archaic, it makes Waze look archaic. You've read about Orion. UPS trucks only turn right. Their routes never is there a left turn. Because you do the math, you do the algorithms. No, right is fast. Except in rural land. You can't turn right all the time in rural land. So what do? Well, you go to your first stop, you get in the back of your truck, you load your 10-pound or less package into the drone, you release the drone. Then you go to the door, you do your business, you get in your truck, you drive to stop 3, you do your business, the drone went to 2, and then back to you. Now, I'm telling this story probably 3 months ago. A guy sitting right there, stood up, took a picture of the slide, sat down, pounds at his phone. When I'm done, I go over, what was that about? He goes, I've got a friend who's really high up in UPS. I just sent him your slide. Look what he wrote. It's amazing, isn't it? We're delivering medicine in Africa with drones. That's what's going on in your country, enabled by your country. But no, we've lost our way. Pay no attention. And then you get to this. You know, the thing that got Donald Trump elected. Because he could more eloquently say we don't do this than Hillary could. So it's United Nations data, it means it lags. So here's 2015, and there's 2016. Trends continued. I tried to get this to Chris Wallace. I wanted to watch the two of them sweat and say, I wanted Chris to say, Mr. Trump, Mrs. Clinton, you say we don't manufacture. You want to call us back to our youth when we dominated the world in manufacturing. Can you square those statements with the data? It's why I love the web, because you and I can get the data to test the narrative. But then I start having fun with it. Okay, let's see. The thing we don't do versus other countries' ability to create wealth. Let's see. Oh, look, the thing we don't do is the 7th largest wealth creator on earth. And since this is us, only 5 other countries create more wealth than the thing we don't do. It's extraordinary. It dominates the #1 energy producer on earth. Oh, but pay no attention because there's nothing going on here. Or do you look at this? Okay, we locked the country down because of Ebola, and 80% of us were in taxis. And now we're vaccinating the earth against Ebola, and 70% of the time we're in Uber. Or do your clients still call it Uber? They can't even pronounce it, and it's wiped out an entire industry. Taxi medallions, there's been two that have traded. One traded in January 15 for $1 million a medallion. You read the journal 6 weeks ago, the second one traded, $112,000. All because of that. Oh, but no, nothing good going on here. Then I start thinking about cancer, and you go, what? Yeah, right there. Everybody in this room has been touched by it in some way. You've either had it, you know someone that's had it, you've lost someone to it, you're losing someone to it. We've all been fighting. We're fighting cancer on war footing. Who put us on war footing? I had to go dig it up. Richard Nixon in 1972 declared the war on cancer. And so from 1972 to 1992, we didn't do so well. Cancer death went up 19 of the 20 years. Higher, more people dying, more people dying, more people dying, more people dying. Until 1992, when it stopped. Cancer death has been down every single year since 1992. And this is per 100,000 Americans. We're not playing around with the numbers. Cancer death is down 25.2% since 1992. Why don't we know that? Why are we not celebrating that we're winning the war on cancer? I mean, we're at the front edge of the biotech revolution, and we've already got cancer on the run. Oh, no. Are we going to dress the NFL in pink in October to celebrate the victory that we're having on breast cancer? No way. We're going to do it to keep that in front of us, because if we don't, it'll take every woman in America. Just bugged me. I went and got the data. Okay, cancer death per 100,000. Breast cancer, women. Oh, my word, we were losing 32 to 33 of you. Now we've cut it down to 20. 20, that's not acceptable. No, but it's sure better than 33. Men, prostate, what were you doing up here at 40? But now, you're at 18. Well, we're not done. No, we're on our way, though. How do I know? I don't know. I look at the total, down 25.2%. And then I sit around, I watch colon cancer descend, and I want to peek at the future. I look to the past. Stomach cancer, 50s. I used to say, too much spam, but then you got to explain spam to millennials. 32. We were losing 32 men, we're now losing 5. We were losing 17 women, now we're losing 3. Are we done? No. Let me give you a little insight. We've got an advisor, a big producer. He lives in Philly. His son is in research at Penn in immunology. Here's what they're currently doing. They take a molecule, they inject it with HIV. Then they take the HIV-activated molecule, they inject that into leukemia patients. There's a number of proteins on the leukemia cancer cell that grab this model and the HIV kills it. They're using HIV like a sniper's rifle on individual leukemia cancer cells. They've cured, not remission, cured 5 people. That's what's going on in your country. But no, you're off the rails, you've lost the way. I mean, irrespective of the fact that 9 years ago you imported 40 to 60% of your daily energy, and today you're the #1 producer on earth. I mean, you're on your way to being the #1 exporter on earth. That may take 4 years. The world is resetting geopolitically because of your strength. Manufacturing, you want to go back to the days of your youth, or you want to be the place where the manufacturing is actually happening? I've got 1,000 anecdotes. The one I love the most is, okay, Beijing used to be bicycles for 2 miles. Now it's Mercedes. Where is every one of those Mercedes that is sold in Beijing built? Stuttgart? Yeah, no, Alabama. Okay? The good old boys roll-tide the Benzes to Beijing. Okay? That's what's happening. The largest French tire maker on earth is Michelin. The largest plant they have is a 2 million square foot facility in South Carolina. And nothing says Chinese manufacturing like plastic silverware. The largest plastic silverware creator on earth is a Chinese company that stamps it out in Pennsylvania. You can't make this stuff up. Or we can go back to the America of your youth where cancer death was 25% higher. Or we can live here right now with the advisors that are most credible people in these jobs that have ever been there because of what you did. Oh, there's that one other thing. You got 1/5 of the world's fresh water. And that's just in that circle. That's not counting that little pond out there. 1/5 of the world's fresh water. The most precious resource on earth because you don't need energy because you have an unlimited amount. And the Chinese and the Indians, 42% of the world, they share a continent and they share a watershed. And they have 14.5% of the world's fresh water. And you're 4.5% of the world and you have 1/5 of it. No, I want to live now. Oh, and there's that one last thing. You and I, we still decide who's in the Oval Office. What a place to be and what a time to be here. Thank you for coming.